I've been watching what's happening in Los Angeles lately with the immigration protests and the riots, and honestly, it's deeply troubling. Not just because of the chaos, but because it feels like everything is unraveling. This is Brian with Redefined Life, and I just want to start this with a thought. When we allow lawlessness to become the language of protests, we lose the ability to be heard by those who want to listen. Think about that a second. When we allow lawlessness to become the language of protest, we lose the ability to be heard by those who want to listen. I understand that people are hurting. I understand that many immigrants come here hoping for a better life, and some have faced some real hardships. I have sympathy for that. I really do. But there has to be a line, there has to be some type of order. And when that line gets crossed, when people start tagging buildings, smashing windows, vandalizing public property, and shutting down roads, it's no longer a protest. It becomes lawlessness. And that's not how we fix anything. There's a real pain happening on both sides of this. On one side, you have immigrants and their families who are scared, they're desperate, they're feeling unheard. But on the other side, you have law enforcement officers, business owners, and everyday citizens, many whom are just trying to protect their communities, who are being threatened, assaulted, and overwhelmed by the violence. No one wins in this scenario. It just deepens the divide. Violence doesn't bring justice, it brings pain. It's not the answer. Never has been. If we're serious about healing, we have to step away from this destruction. But here's a hard truth that needs to be said, and I say this with as much sympathy and compassion as clarity. Many people who are now protesting or facing deportation came here illegally. That was their decision. They broke the law the moment they entered this country without going through the legal process. Some have since started families, they built lives, and they have been here for years. But the consequences we're seeing now, this fear and instability, legal action, those just aren't random. They're the natural results of the original choice. When you build something, your life, your family, your future, on a foundation that is something that was never lawful to begin with, there's always a risk and a chance it will come apart. And I know people will say it's unfair. We have to stop blaming consequences and start being honest about the causes. The foundation was broken from the beginning. As from a Christian perspective, that's the same principle applies to spirituality. The Bible is clear. Sin has consequences. Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived, God will not be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." When we build anything, whether it's a life, a relationship, a movement, on any type of dishonesty, disobedience, or rebellion, we can't act shocked when these things fall apart. People say it's unfair, but the truth is, anything that was built on sin will eventually collapse. That's not God being cruel. That's the result of stepping outside of his order. And here's something we don't hear enough of. There are thousands of immigrants who have followed the law. They've waited for years. They've gone through the interviews. They paid their fees. They respected the process. And now they watch others bypass all of that and get the attention for it. That's not just frustrating for them. That's a deep injustice to those who did things the right way. From a legal standpoint, the U.S. immigration process under Title 8 of the U.S. Code exists to bring structure, fairness, and safety. When cities ignore that, when sanctuary policies refuse to cooperate with federal law, they're enabling more instability, not less. And eventually, that dysfunction spills over into the streets. Biblically speaking, Romans 13 commands us to submit to governing authorities, not because they're perfect, but because they exist for a purpose of maintaining order. That doesn't mean we blindly follow corruption, But it does mean we can't live in rebellion and expect peace. And it's not just citizens who are held to account. Governments are also accountable before God. When leaders ignore this law and they stir up disorder for political gain, they'll have to answer for that. So if you care about justice and immigration reform, that's good. We need to. But don't fight lawlessness with more lawlessness. Don't try to fix the problem of this broken system by breaking more things. Protest the right way. Get involved the right way. Because how we fight matters just as much as why we fight. At the end of the day, this is about more than just laws. It's about truth. And truth must be paired with grace. Love people, but don't excuse the sin. Show compassion, but don't call rebellion righteousness. Real justice comes from alignment with both God's law and God's heart. When we live that way, we find peace, not just for ourselves, but for the nation we're trying to preserve. If you like this content, please hit that like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and share this with your friends. I really appreciate you watching till the end. This is Brian with a Redefined Life.